Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my one of co-hosts and best friends.
Callum,
Hey man, great to see you as always. So today
good to
we
see
are
you.
back with another podcast, and I can't speak. Great start of the podcast, guys. We're taking off another big genre as well with the Rocky films. Now this is going to be a two-part series, I think, or maybe a three-part if you could Creed, but that's kind of its own thing now. But yeah, we've done this year. We've done those, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, yada yada yada. So now we're taking our first dive into sports films, which I'm really excited to do because I don't know about Callum. I'm a big boxing
Was that
fan.
someone yelling at you, Matthew?
I don't think so. I hope not. I'll move on, Joel. But no, I was a big fan of boxing and was looking forward to getting the Rocky films. I'd heard a lot of good things about them. What about you, buddy? Have you seen any of them previously?
Yes, I'd seen Rocky last year in the cinema, as you know, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about some issues that I had when I saw that because I think that I was. Is that outside my window? That noise?
Might be. There's
Yeah,
nothing I can
it
hear
must
here.
be mine. Yeah, my road can get a bit sketchy at these hours. So yes, I had seen the first film previously, and I wish that I hadn't stopped there. After I saw that, I wish I'd gone home and immediately watched two, three, four, five, six, because obviously I didn't know how uh, sort of episodic they are. Where
Hmm.
they sort of flow right into each other. Like back to back. Like it made for a really nice viewing experience, like Back to the Future.
Oh yeah.
Where each one picks up exactly where the last one left off. It was a big surprise, but it was a very good surprise. You hadn't seen any of these, had you?
Hadn't seen any of them. Hadn't seen any of them, dude. But I'm really glad I got the opportunity to do so today for the podcast. But yeah, just before we get into the first three Rocky films today, thanks very much everyone who supported us recently. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on the Rocky franchise down below. We'd love to hear them. And as always, moviematespodcast@gmail.com for any emails, podcast suggestions, or queries. You guys know the drill. So yeah, shall we crack on,
Check
buddy?
out our latest review on New Mutants.
Yes, we're recording the New Mutants and the Rocky Film podcast on the same day. So one of these will be our 100th video. What do you think about that? Pretty
I,
cool,
th-
right?
I don't think we can give that win to the New
New
Mutants to
Mutants,
you.
no. No,
If
we'll give
if
it
I'd
to
known,
the.
we could have done a special occasion thing, a retrospective.
We could have done. Well, I suppose. Well, we can still do that. Maybe we could do
Yeah,
it.
we can reflect on the fact that we've done 100. It doesn't need to be the 100th video, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's a good point. Yeah, but yeah, thanks very much, guys, for supporting us, and I hope you guys enjoy us finally getting through some of these big franchises as well, finally getting into the sports drama. So yeah, I suppose. Did you want to open with Rocky? Just Rocky, just Rocky one.
Yes. So if we want to talk about the issues that I had at the cinema, I
Go
was
for
at a
it,
very
dude.
small cinema in Belfast. I think probably the smallest one that we have here in Belfast, and there were some major issues with the sound, and I didn't think that any of the dialogue was discernible. I thought it was definitely the issue of the cinema. I thought they were maybe just like playing a DVD, and they didn't get the right sound transfer or whatever.
Sure.
But watching it at home, I realized it's the issue of the film. Uh,
Oh,
you
it
know,
is. Yeah.
did you find this as well?
Yeah, I had ordered the Rocky films and DVD like a while back. Sorry, I bought the Rocky films and DVD, and then I put on the first film, and the audio's not great. It's very poor. It's very
The audio is
echoey.
terrible.
Yeah, and I have to watch like most films I watch in subtitles anyway, but I really had to watch these with subtitles because their audio was pretty bad for the time. Like we've reviewed movies before, dude, where movies like The Graduate where the audio was great, or at least not as bad as here. So like it's weird
Yeah,
to think that 1976, I think this was, that's not like an
yeah,
old movie. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, we watched Citizen Kane, and it was better.
Yeah, yeah. What was that,
I
like
mean,
40s or something, or 50s?
yeah, that's from the 1940s. So yeah, it was sort of. I was unimpressed with that, and I thought having such a fundamental issue because really you have the visuals, you have the audio. Those are the two big things. I would have thought if one was shit, then that would have like sort of left it out of consideration. Because
Literally.
do you know that this film won the best picture
Yeah,
Oscar,
yeah,
which
yeah,
shocked me.
it shocked me as well, to be honest. And I had read something that said this movie made $225 million at the time, which is the equivalent to $1 billion today, which absolutely blew my mind.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
But you would have thought if one of the fundamental parts of a film is, very questionable, you would have thought that would have sort of removed it from contention of being the best picture of that year.
You'd think so. You'd think so, but maybe that year was just wasn't that good. I don't know. But part of me thinks Taxi Driver was that year, but it probably wasn't. 1976.
No, it was. Oh, yeah, sorry, no, yeah, it was. Sorry, my apologies. Yes,
No,
yes,
you're good.
Taxi
No,
Driver was
no,
that year,
because
but
I
it
was
was a
waiting
very
for.
it was a very controversial decision. And they've since done like a repoll with like the new members of the Academy, and they said that they would have actually voted for All the President's Men, which was the other film up for contention, which is another film with Robert De Niro. He had a very successful year that year
Yeah,
because
must have.
he was of
Yeah,
course in Taxi Driver. So yeah, I was surprised to hear that because that's a film that I'd never even heard of.
yeah. No, same.
Let alone thought would have been the best picture of that year. But yeah,
Yeah.
this has landed on a lot of lists of like one of the worst films to win Best Picture.
Yeah.
On like I think it was a very like reputable source, had listed it number seven worst picture that won Best Picture.
Yeah, no, I can see why, but I actually don't think it's definitely not bad. Obviously, if it's nominated for Best Picture, it must be good. And it's weird because there's a lot of things I really love about this film. One of them being how the location of the film is so integral to the character, with it being Philadelphia. Like it's weird, like how a fictional character like Rocky Balboa can become like such a icon in real life as well. And this film's it's a lot more of a deep character piece than I ever expected. There's not much boxing here at all. It's more just about Rocky's life, to be honest, and about him getting by most days. We see that like he's got like a mattress in his bedroom set up as a punching bag. Like he's a real working class character. I love that. And it's weird because like we see that's part of the character as well, and from a boxing sense that like he uses like you know meat carcasses as a punch bag as well, which is interesting. And I thought it was absolutely great in the sense that it is a character piece more than a boxing film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say great. We'll talk about the obviously the quality of the film by the end. But yes, I definitely think it's a surprising film. Definitely great.
We'll get into
We'll talk about that.
it. Yeah.
A fundamental part of the character, which I just 100% completely forgotten and was surprised when I saw it when I was in the cinema, is the fact that he's an enforcer for a loan shark, and that's just, and it's not even like you would think he would realize that he's sort of a criminal on like doing a dangerous and illegal job, and that he would have a moral redemption where he realizes that was wrong, and then
Sure.
Distances himself from that in order to keep Adrian safe or something like that. Nah, I mean like
No.
his boss like comes to his wedding, his boss like comes to all his matches. There's no distance between them even when he leaves the job. They remain
Mhm.
friends, and he's always like insisting that Mr. Gaza was a good guy. I doubt it, but
Yeah, I
okay.
know. I know what you
I
mean,
mean,
dude.
I do have to say, like though, if you're borrowing off a loan shark, if you're taking that risk, and the only consequence that you get for being late is having your thumb broken, you've gotten off very lightly.
Well, without doubt, dude. And I remember one thing you had said to me before we had watched this film was like about how Rocky really, really likes Adrian. And I was like, God, he really does, doesn't he? He really pushes the boat out way too much here, doesn't he?
Oh, I mean, I've written the word harassment maybe 4 times.
It's definitely in that realm. I'll give you that. It's
Yeah,
definitely up there.
yeah. I mean, yeah. If we sort of go into that now, I have a lot of notes about Adrian because I think she's one of my favorite characters in the film. Because I think I think all these, a lot of these characters are sort of ridiculous caricatures and stereotypes, but she's the only person that felt like a real person.
It's a good
Someone that
point.
you would actually encounter who's, like, shy, in a manner that, allows herself to, doesn't allow herself to open up to other people. I think that's a person that you encounter a lot, whereas Rocky is, unlike anyone that we would meet in person. I guess that's why the film sort of wants us to see him as special,
Yeah.
because he's unlike other people, in the field of boxing or just in life. But Adrian, by like obviously we know that Paulie's an absolute dickhead and he gets worse throughout the films. He should just be binned off. We'll talk about that in
I
number
like
three.
Polly. Yeah.
He's awful.
I like
But
Polly.
he calls Adrian a loser just because she's quiet. And Rocky, just she doesn't pay attention to Rocky in every interaction they have. He says that he goes to the pet shop twice daily to tell her a joke, and she never laughs. So why is he doing
Why
it?
is he doing it?
She shows no interest and just keeps harassing her.
Exactly.
And I mean, I feel so bad for her. Like, no one lets her make a decision for herself. She's peer pressured going on a date with Rocky. It's the most uncomfortable date I've ever seen.
It is.
It's
It really
painful.
is. They have no
They
chemistry
destroy her
either. I don't think
Thanksgiving
they have
turkey.
any chemistry whatsoever.
I nearly cried when Polly threw the turkey into the
Yeah.
alley, because
really
she worked all day on that.
There's a lot of characters that I've heard a lot about with these films. Like, oh, you're gonna, and this isn't from me, obviously. Like, from just like reviews online, like, oh, this character, I love him. It's such a great character. The characters of Paulie, and this is maybe a hot take. I'm really not a huge fan of Mickey. I think he's unnecessarily aggressive, and he hasn't coached any world champions. Like, I mean, he's not like exactly big time.
I don't understand how he's so successful as a coach. I don't know why his ego is so bolstered, and I don't know why Burgess Meredith got nominated for best supporting actor.
He got nominated for best supporting actor.
He's not good in it.
What?
Yeah, he got nominated. I don't think he won. I don't think he won, thankfully. But also, God. I made this note because we've sort of watched a couple of films from the 1940s, pretty much from every decade where films have been made or have at least been popularized. And it's my assertion that at a certain point acting became a job, that was actually where you needed talent to do it. We see people like Joaquin Phoenix, who I think is one of the best actors of all time, because every performance he does has nuance, research. You can feel the depth of the character. It feels like a person.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this was just emotionless people shouting, and I think that's very prevalent here, where I think I could have made it as an actor in these times, with no talent. Do you remember in like Citizen Kane? Pretty much, you have Orson Welles. He's incredible. Everyone around him is terrible. They're all terrible actors who are just yelling things at the top of their lungs, and calling that emotion, calling that acting.
That's so true, mate. I definitely think it's I don't know. I'm gonna mention this now. My hot take. We're famed on the Movie Mates channel for our hot takes, and my hot take is my favorite character in this whole franchise up to this point is without doubt Apollo Creed. Like, he actually acts like, for me, he acts like a reasonably normal person, and how a heavyweight champion of the world definitely would act. He's got an ego, yet he's like, he doesn't want yes men around him in the sense. So I quite like that. But on the subject of I think the director was definitely, or whoever was instructing the guy who played Mickey, he was just like, just yell every line. Like, there's no nuance to that performance. I don't want to be as if I'm like hating on the Mickey character. I think he definitely needs to be in these films to ground Rocky to a sense, so he doesn't get too big of an inflated ego. But I think potentially, like, don't get me wrong, we'll get into the third film and his demise there, but it wasn't exactly like the picturesque. Like, I actually prefer the dynamic in, and this is going to sound really bad, like, I prefer the dynamic in like Real Steel with Hugh Jackman and the kid actor. I think that's way better. Like, in my opinion, it's weird.
Okay. Yeah, going to Apollo Creed, I really respect Apollo Creed, but I did, especially like sort of his business prowess. We sort of talk a lot about, how characters make baffling decisions.
Yeah.
And they don't understand marketing, or they just don't have any business know-how. But the idea that he had that he would get a lot of buzz off the fact that he's given this underdog a shot. He's absolutely right. I think that would give like a huge amount. I think with sort of the world of like YouTube boxing right now, I think we're gonna get into that with future films maybe, where we talk about sort of Logan Paul versus KSI. The fact that it's Floyd Mayweather fighting Logan Paul, isn't it?
I think that could be a potential fight, or less Jake Paul versus KSI. But I love that whole YouTube boxing thing. I think it's great. But
yeah,
I do agree.
I think I think sort of like pre-existing boxers with a lot of respect in the field, giving like sort of like broaching that gap between real boxing and YouTube boxing. I think whoever is like the first to breach that gap, I think they'll get massive amounts of respect.
Oh, for sure, dude, for sure. And like, I think this film definitely, there's no doubt like this film probably inspired a lot of professional boxers now. Like, but like, it's sort of what I was saying earlier, dude. Like, there's surprisingly not a lot of boxing in this. Like, I watched this film a few days ago, and if I'm right in saying there's only the first sort of underground fight that Rocky has, and then there's the final fight, whereas Apollo Creed, I don't think there's any intermediate fights with that. So it's a bit just like a two fight film, really. I think that is correct, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, that is right. I watched it this morning.
Yeah, and like I think, yeah, for a film about boxing, there isn't that much boxing. But that being said, I don't think it necessarily needs it because I think, to be fair, Sylvester Stallone, I haven't seen him in many films, but I actually think he's quite good. Like he's very comfortable in this role, and that might be because I think I watched the interview in Graham Norton when he said like he had wanted to do this franchise, not just a film, but a franchise for years. Like he had, as you said, mate, written and directed a lot of films, and I think you said 4 or something. And like he really saw himself in that character, and I gotta respect that. I think that's maybe where like we said, Michael B. Jordan has taken that Sly Stallone approach there to the Creed films, which I can't wait for. So I'm really looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. We mentioned that off the podcast, so just to mention, we're hoping to do the Creed film sometime early next year. Because we're fastly approaching the end of the year, and when we do cover that, we'll hopefully talk about our expectations or wishes for the third film. But what I was saying to Matthew was Michael B. Jordan is actually going to be directing Creed 3 as his directorial debut, and I think we're all massively excited for that after seeing what a talented actor he is. I'm sure under like sort of the pupillage of Sylvester Stallone, hopefully he takes that opportunity and does really well with it.
Fingers crossed.
There's a lot about Rocky in this film specifically that I do not like whatsoever. A lot of the people that he gives advice to, or a lot of decisions he makes, I question thoroughly. But one of the weirdest interactions in film is him telling a smoking 12-year-old little girl who's just hanging about with some boys that she's going to end up a whore. Very questionable.
Classic
I was
Rocky.
very uncomfortable. And then, like, very weirdly, I haven't heard anyone mention these movies in months. And then today I saw an ad for Rocky 2 on TV, and also on a Facebook group that I'm a part of. People were asking about this scene specifically, and it was because the scene ends with like the little girl who's clearly like 16, but apparently she's 12. But she does like this arm motion where she goes like, "Screw you, creepo," and then does like this like uppercut. And people are like, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm still pondering, Matthew.
It's like
I'm still baffled.
It's kind of like Eddie Furlong from Terminator 2, like that sort of 70s, 80s, and 90s style of child actor. Just not, it doesn't hold up, does it? But like,
It's abysmal.
There's a lot about this film that is ridiculous. So there is, and I suppose maybe that's because I don't know if that was the movie that Sly Stallone had envisioned, of course, but it's hard to say. But one thing I actually didn't know about like Sly Stallone as a person is that like his distinct voice and accent is actually as a result of Bell's palsy, which is a condition I think Thor, who plays the Mountain in Game of Thrones, also has. Like, did you know this?
No, I didn't know that at all, actually.
No, because like his voice is so distinct and stuff, and it's really like it's integral to every character. We've and stuff. So we've seen that like the Rambo films as well, and I think he's also in the MCU, isn't he? He's in Guardians too, right?
Yeah, he's in Guardians 2. He plays Stakar or
That's it, yeah.
Starhawk.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, no, it's a result of Bell's palsy, which I didn't know. But no, going back to the Rocky character, there's a lot of things I dislike about it as well. And I'm not sure if it gets better by 2 and 3, but it's certainly because this film is so Rocky central. It's highlighted a lot more here. Like I've got so many notes here. Like I'm not convinced by the Adrian Rocky relationship at all. I think it's so rushed. Like it's so rushed, isn't it? It's awful.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think provided two people are in love, their romance can go quite quickly.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just this quote unquote romance is so embarrassing to watch. Like I feel so uncomfortable and I feel so bad for Adrian because I mean, it does not feel like she has any romantic interest towards him. For example, there's about 4 or 5 instances in the first hour of the film where he's sort of courting her, where they share moments, and then the camera zooms in on her face, having sort of like a private contemplative moment. And I think that was sort of their opportunity to establish that she actually did have sort of suppressed or, just secreted feelings for Rocky. But in every moment, she looks like either disinterested, sad, or like fearful. Every time they zoom in on her face, she's like,
do you think that's the actress's fault, maybe? Or what do you think?
Well, no, I mean, the role of the director is, to tell actors how to act. They have the acting talent, the ability. But, what is seen on screen is the responsibility of the director.
I agree.
So if they were like, I think even in one of, if as I said, there's maybe 3 or 4 instances where this happens, with Adrian. I think even in like the scene where I'll give you an example. Right before Adrian and Rocky go ice skating, she comes out in her coat and hat, and then Rocky goes out the front door and she's at the mirror adjusting her hat. If even in that one moment right before she goes on that date, there was the smallest hint of a smile that showed that she was happy about the scenario, that's all I would have needed to be like, okay, there's a mutual interest there. That's all I needed. But there's not one instance of an appearing mutual interest until he literally pins her into a corner, which and then takes away her vision by stealing her glasses, and then just kisses her, and then they like topple to the ground. It gave me like very heavy like Blade Runner vibes. The way Deckard is is a very uncomfortable relationship with Rachel, and I think the like final cut that we watched makes it sort of even weirder. I haven't seen a different cut of it, but I think it's a little less questionable in those ones. But here,
buddy.
I needed to see a bit of mutual interest to take away the creep factor and convince me that it wasn't harassment.
That's so true, buddy. And in a sort of similar sense to how you feel about the sort of the Rocky Adrian dynamic. For me, the Rocky Mickey dynamic is maybe just as fallible. I don't know if that's the word, but like I felt, because there's a scene in which like I felt so bad for the girls who go up to Rocky and ask for an autograph, and Mickey just screams at them like that. That was so unnecessary. I think that was this. No, it definitely was this film, wasn't it? And no, because Mickey, he's sort of so needlessly aggressive. Like he seems like, I get that the main priority of the film is to establish Rocky as like a very successful professional fighter, but there's I think maybe Mickey should sort of realize there's more to life than being successful in boxing. Like, as long as you enjoy it, that should all that counts. And one autograph from two girls isn't really going to impact whether he becomes heavyweight champion of the world or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and I think that a lot of people in this film are misguided about what the purpose of this fight needs to be. Mickey says, you need to win this because you're not going to get a second shot at the belt, which is clearly ridiculous. I mean, Apollo Creed was finding it very difficult to find a contender because all the people were scared, in his opinion, scared to get hit, to get beaten by him on the public stage. But you would think that anyone with a brain would fight him, at least for the recognition. I feel like only an idiot would refuse, because no one's going to judge someone for losing to the already established heavyweight champion. If you lose, that's the expectation. If you,
that's a great point.
That's
a really good point. Yeah.
Like if you go out there, give it a good shot, you're going to get respect, you're going to get recognition. And Rocky is really the only person, despite being probably the least educated character in the film, he's probably the only one smart enough to realize that. He recognizes it as a business opportunity and an opportunity for recognition and hopefully respect. But everybody else in his life is telling him, you have to win, you're not going to get a second chance. But we know for a fact that rematches are like more popular than the original fight, because you build the beef, you build the rivalry, then you get more media recognition, you get a bigger paycheck. It's industry procedure that if there's sort of a controversial fight or like a controversial decision, there will be a rematch, and a rematch will get more publicity and more attention, more popularity. So it's completely insane to me that anyone would suggest that this would be his like one and only chance to do it.
Yeah, that's what a similar thing to like the YouTube boxing. Going back to that, like the first Logan Paul and KSI fight, so it was ended in a draw. So by nature, it stands to reason that the rematch would automatically be more financially successful and have more eyes on it. So yeah, and also like it is nice to see that apparently the sort of storyline where the heavyweight champ calls out or selects like an up and coming pro boxer happen in real life with like Muhammad Ali and some I think his name was Chuck something, which is cool. And like in that instance, like a very similar thing happened where like Ali didn't knock him down until like the 15th round. Was like I think that was like the only time Ali was like held until that point. But anyway, I'm not a huge like Muhammad Ali expert, so if anyone's in the comments, let me know about that one. I'm not too sure, but yeah, like the I think the fact that Apollo Creed, it's probably a bit unrealistic looking at that today. I think that definitely would not happen, especially given the age of Rocky, because I actually didn't realize like by the second film I think he's already like 31 or something, or 32. Like I thought like he was really young in these films, but he's actually like an established sort of veteran of this of the sport as well. It's weird.
I mean, yeah, it was sort of weird to me that people said, "Oh, you know," because by the third film he's 34, and they say you can't make a comeback at 34, which I don't know. In my mind, that sounded ridiculous. But then I sort of remember, you know, it just never occurs to me how young pro athletes are. You know, people say, you know, if you're not like the best of the best of football, you know, by your early 20s, you're never going to get signed in your life. You know,
Yeah, it's
because
true.
you know, I guess they just, you know, see the writing on the wall for the potential of your career. But, you know, at 34, you know,
You're not over the
you
hill,
know
are
how
you?
much
Yeah.
punishment you can take. Yeah, you know, I would have thought, you know, you're not necessarily that slow by your 30s. You know, I would have
Oh
thought
yeah, it's true.
there's potential there, and provided you're fighting like people of your similar age, you know, I think him maintaining the heavyweight title by 34 is maybe questionable, and we can talk about that in the third film. But you know, I don't know. I never thought that he was too old for the sport.
Yeah.
But you know, this is considered a great film. This is considered, you know, one of the best sports films of all time. And I think, like, what do you find the criteria for a great film? I think that a great film is one that can be like characterized by one great scene. Like, I think if you have one scene of perfection and then sort of just an okay, like, you know, sort of you know, start and end, but in the middle, if you have one perfect scene, or, you know, at the start of the end, one perfect scene, I think your film is considered by history great. And in this instance, that's the training scene. You know,
Yeah.
say like The Graduate, you know, that is maybe my second or third favorite film of all time. You know, there's the Mrs. Robinson seduction scene, and then there's the final scene on the bus. I think those are two perfect scenes, and I
Agreed.
think that's, you know, what characterizes it as a great film. How do you
Agreed.
feel about that?
Yeah, I think this film is definitely characterized by that training scene for sure. I like what you were saying about like a really perfect scene amongst a sea of mediocrity. That's often a lot of great films, to be honest with you. And I'm trying to think of good examples of that. Like for me, you know, I suppose if we look back in like films that we review that were potentially like Oscar worthy, like a lot of Streetcar Named Desire is filled with mediocrity, but then towards the end, you know, with Blanche's sort of mental breakdown, like the whole third act is really phenomenal, and I think that maybe definitely helps boost that film's criteria for being a great film. But yeah, for this film, I think the training scene it's fantastic. You know, the Rocky theme song is so good. It's not my favorite training montage though out of these three films, to be fair. It's definitely because it was the first, I have to give it a lot of credit, but it's not my favorite one. But it's definitely
Okay.
it's fantastic. Yeah, it's so good.
I would also like to say what I said about The Graduate. I did not mean that it's filled with mediocrity.
Oh
I
no,
just
yeah,
meant
yeah,
that
I get you.
I
Yeah,
just meant that, you know, that's like the lowest bar for a great film, that it can have one perfect scene and mediocrity, but can still be considered great. But in the case of The Graduate, it's all fantastic.
of
It's just
course.
it
Yeah,
does
no, I
have
get you.
two
100%.
perfect scenes.
100%.
Uh, you know, we sort of see that this is very much the, you know, the first film in a series of great films. You know, I think, you know, this is the one, it had to make a few mistakes so that it could know what to improve.
For
And,
sure.
you know, there are a few things that are glaringly obvious that I'm like, okay, that was an issue. One example would be that the punch sound effects sound like someone shaking a bag of coins. You know, so
Yeah,
like
they do actually. That's a good shout.
every time it's just like like yeah, exactly. You know, it's just it's not quite right,
No,
but
it's not.
every issue that I had with this film is amended by the second film. So I highly applaud that, and I think it's probably because of the direction of Stallone, because it being his screenplay, he probably knew how best to adapt it.
Dude, I was watching a few fight scenes from the Creed movies, right? I don't think a film has ever been made to age so badly as if you compare the fight scenes to this film to the fight choreography in the Creed films. I mean, it's like a student film versus like a $200 million budget film. That's the levels there. Of course, with the technology at the time, of course, they maybe couldn't do the Creed visuals, but like the Creed fight scenes, although they look really like, obviously like it's so well choreographed. Like there's no missed punches like there is in these ones. But like a lot of the fight choreography in this film is like just Rocky get his head just popped with jabs. Like he has absolutely no defense whatsoever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
it's just like bam, bam,
for the sake of realism, Stallone has said that he like took multiple punches to the face, and I'm like, it wasn't worth it, mate.
No,
It still looks like shit.
Like we see.
I mean, there are like sort of like wide shots where Creed, the sound effect hits, but he's like 6 inches away from Stallone's face.
He is as well, isn't he? Like the Creed. I go back. When I say Creed, I mean like the Creed 2015 one and the 2018 one. Like those like fights are amazing. The fights here are still amazing for the time. But yeah, like we said, the dodgy audio, like we mentioned at the start, doesn't help things, especially when, like you said, the punches sound like airbags going off or something, or like loose change in someone's pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we need to talk about is the ending of the film and the decision of who won the fight, because it's sort of a contentious thing with this film, and then it's addressed at the beginning of the next film. And I want to talk about it here because they didn't show the whole fight. They maybe showed like 4 full rounds and then sort of like a summary of a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
But of what they showed of the fight, Rocky should have won. Like, I already thought, like, I was thinking, because they showed pretty much at least the first 2 or 3 rounds like in full, like, the entire thing. And I thought that they probably showed too much of it. At that point I was thinking, oh, this is going on a bit, that they should probably, liven it up, add a bit of music, edit it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then of what they did show, Rocky, in my mind, won every single round. And, I just thought that the decision was unbelievable. Like, I was shocked when I went in and saw that film. I was like, I don't understand that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Although obviously, even though he didn't win the fight, he took the victory, because really
People's
it was
champ.
about he was the people's champ, and sort of the love that he had for Adrian conquered his need for sort of the title, I guess.
That's a great point, buddy. And in relation to that, buddy, I had a question I wanted to ask you that sort of relates into the start of the second film. Like we see in that film, Apollo says to his team, I won, but I didn't beat him. Like, do you think he means in that? Because I was sort of confused by that line, in the sense that, does he think he actually lost the fight when he says he didn't beat him? Did he feel like, oh, I did win, but like I didn't get I didn't knock him out, I didn't beat him to a pulp? Because I sort of think I thought like he still thought he won the fight, but he didn't get that like knockout blow or beat him to a pulp that he wanted. What do you think?
Yeah, he says throughout that he thought that he would drop Rocky in the 3rd round, but for it to go 15 rounds is obviously insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that he expected to like drop him knockout in the 3rd, and I think he was just always going to live with the fact that one of them, it would like they were saved by the bell is a phrase that was used in the film. And he is constantly telling Rocky that he was like lucky to survive, like the Rocky was lucky to survive it.
Mm.
But I mean, Creed was in like as bad a position, as bad a condition, so he was lucky to have survived it as well. So yeah, I think he's too egotistical, at least in these first 2 films, to admit the fact that he was probably in as difficult a position as Rocky in that moment. And yeah, I think for his publicity team, all that he meant was, he should have knocked him out and confirmed the victory.
I'd agree.
But I do think he is himself questioning his win.
For sure, that's a great point, buddy. For sure, I agree with you. I don't actually have any more points regarding the film, really, apart from like I just said, Apollo's ring walk is hilarious, is ridiculous, but I love it. But yeah, apart from that, nothing more in the film for me. Callum, anything from yourself, dude?
Yeah, very, very brief thoughts on
Go for it.
Apollo. What a wanker in this film, at least. We'll talk about
Yeah.
him in future films, but his introduction, he talks about himself in the third person. Then
Yeah,
he
yeah. It's not a
disparages
good, it's
his
always not a good sign
art.
when that happens.
He's like, become a doctor or a lawyer, being a fighter's like for no good, like no like for no good bombs. I'm like, all right, mate, fuck off then. And then
Yeah.
as you said, he comes in like a complete twat, like on a like was
Like
it on a
King's
horse
Throne.
or
It was
something?
like a throne
Like on
or
a
something. Oh
chariot or
no, it was
something.
no, it wasn't a horse or something, wasn't it? Yeah, it wasn't something like
Yeah, I
that.
was like, what a knobhead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know, yeah.
he did not gain my respect until the third film, which we will talk about.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Is that everything from you in the first film? Yeah.
That's everything
No
for me.
problem.
Yeah.
What rating would you give it out of 10, dude?
So of the three that we've watched so far, it's the one that I least enjoyed. I would say it's the one that gets the most praise, which confused me a little. I guess just because it established the world, established the characters, which then went on to, in my opinion, become more successful. At least with the quality of the films that we've watched today.
Mm-hmm.
I assume, when something goes on for 6 films, there's going to be a stinker in there. I would say we've watched like a pretty good one and then two great ones. I have to imagine like I know what happens in Rocky 4. I have no idea what happens in Rocky 5, and then I know what happens in Rocky Balboa. So I'm concerned that Rocky 5 is a stinker, because out of 6, you've got to have a stinker. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you have
And
to, don't you?
here, I think I have to respect it, for introducing all these things that I went on to enjoy in future films. But I do think it has some technical issues. I have, moral issues with the character of Rocky. I don't like a lot of the character. I would say I pretty much just like Adrian, and even though he was a bit of a twat, I at least respected Apollo Creed, but I didn't respect Rocky, at least in this film.
It's a fair
And
point, dude.
I think in a film about an underdog where you're meant to love him, I think it missed the mark there. So
Yeah,
I'd
man.
give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, no, I think you made some fantastic points as always there, man, for sure. I'd agree with you on a lot of things. Rocky's probably, I think he gets better in the next two films, but here, this is probably the film I liked the least out of the three, but I still loved it. Really glad I watched it as well. I thought the fight scenes were hilarious, but quite well done. Very good for the time. Romance, not great. Mickey, don't like him. Apollo Creed, love him. So I'd give it only a 0.5 out of 10. I'll be a little bit conservative here. I'll not go like a 9 or a 10 this time, but it's certainly the one that I think has the most problems out of the three, which is weird to say. That's probably a hot take, I would say, by most people's standards, isn't it?
I would think so. And, going into the second film, I think it's very different, especially in its characterization of the Rocky and Adrian romance, because I'll pretty much drop any criticism that I had from the first film, because they do completely amend that. Here, I think, by having her say to Rocky that she loves him at the end of the first film, and then in this film actually show it, I think
Yeah.
I was more convinced by the romance here. It seemed less harassment-y. I would say that almost every criticism I had of the previous film is fixed here. The audio is perfect. Rocky, I love him. He's amazing. He's a sweetheart.
He
He's
is.
a
He is. He's a lovable
he's
guy.
the underdog that the first film wanted me to feel empathy for, and I felt that here.
Dude, everything you've said there, I agree with. The only thing I said, my only really negative point for this film is that it literally shows the exact same scene from the last film in the start of this, which is something that if I'm going to compare it, like I don't think Back to the Future did that once, really. Maybe one time, I think, but like it never really majorly did that in the same way this film does. So it loses a bit of marks there. But I have to say, Rocky becomes a romantic in this film because his proposal at Philadelphia Zoo I thought quite charming. I actually quite liked it.
I mean, I
It's a
did
bit
write that
weird. It's a bit.
them getting married is insane. Like no, like it's been like 4 weeks of dating, and a lot of that was just her like really begrudgingly going out with this
Exactly.
insane person,
Yeah.
and then they just get married a few months later. It does seem crazy, and I just wondered, do you think that this film goes through too many relationship milestones? Because they're engaged, then they're married, then they have their first kid. It's insane in one film.
It's weird. Yeah, I think I don't know if this is going to make sense, but this film has sort of crossed the weird boundary in my mind where it simultaneously has nothing but also so much happening to it in the same sense. Like I said, I have a note here. Barely anything's it happens in this, although there is more of a development for the Rocky character than anything else. Although that being said, like there is a lot of relationship milestones, like you said, with the baby, the engagement, and marriage. and also, you know, the fight. There's a fight in there as well. This movie it's a family man film mixed with a sport film, mixed with a character piece. It's so much things going on, but it balances it well. But what do you think, dude? Like, where's your head at on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, it's exceptionally questionable, I guess. Because I think I definitely agree with you that it feels like nothing happens, and I think that's because they have something really important happen, then skip months in the future, then something important, then months in the future. So you don't actually get to like sit in its importance.
That's a
They
good
get
point.
engaged, then the next scene is them getting married, then the next scene is them getting a house, then the next scene is she's pregnant, and then there's some chunk of the film, where he's sort of working a bit, she's working a bit, and then they have the baby. But yeah, I think that's maybe the cause of that issue. Uh,
I,
I
yeah.
was just I was thrown a bit, at the start of this film that it was taking place directly after the first film. That surprised me massively because I just didn't think that it would pick up there. But I really enjoyed that because I feel like a lot of films, sort of skip really important moments. And as I said in this film, I don't think we get to sit in those important moments, but at least we get to see them.
Absolutely,
And
dude.
I think
Absolutely.
if they'd skipped 6 months into the future or like a year into the future, at least, well, the future as in after the first Rocky, if they were just if it like opened with Rocky already agreeing to do the next match with Apollo, I feel like we would have missed a lot of depth and sort of reflection on the events of the first film.
Yeah, it's a great point, dude. And like on that earlier point about, you know, everything going on at once, I don't want to be too harsh on Stallone because I actually really respect him. Like I think he's a great actor and screenwriter, but I think maybe I personally what I got as a viewer of this was that I think he feels a lot more comfortable in the scenes where he's actually boxing, where it's like a boxing focused scene rather than I think he struggles in scenes where it's a relationship or it's a continuity of the plot or in some sense a relationship. That's why I think that might be a little bit rushed. Whereas the boxing scenes in this, I think, are a lot better than the first one. And I think that's probably down to Stallone's comfort in that area. You know, obviously with the first film, I'd imagine he would have to train, maybe not to the extent of how a pro boxer would have trained, but have to get in some sort of decent shape and acquire some sort of boxing know-how to at least make these punches look realistic. So, you know, to like we sort of mentioned the YouTube boxing, I'd imagine he'd have to train on that sort of near that level, maybe not quite the KSI Logan Paul level, but maybe up there. But yeah, like it's weird because I have a weird note here sort of saying that like I was really confused as to why everyone is making fun of Rocky as if he's a chump, even though he's the only boxer in history to have lasted the 15 rounds of the Apollo. Like this guy is like elite, like for an up and coming boxer who's got like I think like he has like a fictional boxing record where it was like he's finished every fight apart from one with by knockout, and that was the Apollo Creed one. So like I was like he's quite clearly good. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I would have thought, because right after, and this will tie into the next point I had. Right after the fight, he's offered a bunch of like promotional materials. He's
Mm,
offered ads and stuff like that.
yeah.
Why is no one offering him a fight? I know he said,
Yeah,
"I'm
yes.
gonna
I
officially
thought the exact
retire."
same thing.
Of course he's gonna like say, "I officially retire," but later in the movie, people are perfectly comfortable, pushing him out of retirement to fight Apollo Creed. So why is no one pushing him out of retirement to, just fight at a
Yeah,
slightly lower
literally,
level?
literally,
If he,
yeah. That
because I
happens
mean,
in real
we
life
see
as
we
well.
see in the next film that once he's already achieved the heavyweight title, then whenever he's doing sort of the the title challenger, the title challenger matches, he has no issue because they've been handpicked and they're at a slightly lower level. So why isn't he just fighting at that level?
Yeah,
And
no, exactly. That's just a great point, buddy. Yeah,
easily getting
for
wins,
sure, for sure.
and then in his mind build credibility, and then maybe he can return and as he does in this film eventually beat Apollo Creed. But what I wanted to ask you about was what you would do with this fame, because we see right after he's offered he's in the position where he's offered to do commercials, and I was just wondering how would you handle the success of this fight? Would you sort of
Oh, it's a good
take the
question, dude.
opportunities to make money, off commercials and stuff, or would you just bask in the credibility and then just like have a quiet, more humble life, but know that you did something really amazing?
That's a good point, buddy. Like, you know me, I like my sports and I like boxing. So, like, if I was in in the sort of scenario that Rocky Balboa is in, I'd probably like you were sort of saying, like take a few lower fights and stuff and try and, because if the Apollo Creed rematch was there at the end, you'd sort of want to get yourself in that sort of mindset where like you're fighting regularly, and like I'd probably like take a few other fights, and then the money will probably come with that at the end. But what about you, buddy? Where would your head be at on that one?
Yeah, I think as Rocky recognizes, like taking the adverts like cheapens the success, and sort of makes a bit of a laughing stock out of him. And I think I would probably follow the same idea. I think either I would retire in peace, live a more humble life, take a lower paying job, but know I did something amazing, or as you said, pursue the lower level of fighting. I don't think I would fight Apollo Creed again, even if I thought I could win. If there's like a risk of death
Risky
or
fight.
serious injury,
Yeah.
I wouldn't take it, especially with the child on the way that he has with Adrian.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah,
forgot about
just in the crossroads at this moment where Rocky is, where he's either I can do this commercial, it's a bit embarrassing, but I make money, or return to the factories, but have self-respect. I think I would take the self-respect route.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like nothing I'd ever seen.
Mate, that was like bam, straight out of the womb with a full head of hair. I was like, that is.
He had a quiff as well.
Yeah,
like
someone
was
he had product in his hair.
like,
I swear,
topping that up with a hairdryer.
Yeah, literally. So he styled that. But yeah, yeah. I sort of mentioned about this film. Oh, sorry, the last film, that it wasn't my favorite workout montage. This one has my favorite workout montage, and I actually really think I like the running scene where all these kids are just chasing Rocky. Although, like, there's bound to be a lot of like parents wondering where their kids are. It's like chasing the heavyweight champion of the world.
He was encouraging them, and I was
yeah,
like,
he's like, come on,
kidnapping?
kids. Yeah, I know. Like, it was so weird, but no, I love that workout scene so much. I think it's absolutely great.
Yeah, to me, I think it's great, but I don't think it's different enough from the first films, and it has less impact, I think, because Rocky no longer is the underdog in my eyes, because we know that he can, stand up to Apollo Creed, and if he can at least, match him, he can potentially beat him.
Yeah.
So I think he had less to prove in this film. And we've seen him climb the stairs before, and we knew he could do it again. So I think that moment where he cheers for himself at the top of the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it had less meaning to me.
No, I 100% see where you're coming from there, dude, for sure. That's always the risk with these Rocky films. Like, one criticism, I suppose, people point out is like it's very rinse and repeat. Rocky's the underdog, he loses a fight, or draws a fight and then eventually wins it in the end, or loses a relative, or loses a character that's close to him and then wins by the end. So it's there's not much you can do with these films plot wise, but I do agree with you. It does lose some of its meaning there for sure.
And we'll sort of skip ahead, because I think a lot of the fight choreography, the fight itself, is very similar to the first film.
Yeah.
Except that right from the off, it seems that Creed has the upper hand. And I was just wondering, do you think that Rocky deserved the win? Because I would have thought that surely in a point-based system, even a knockout, because we see that Rocky wins about 2 out of the 15 rounds, so like 13 of them go to Creed. But just because Rocky knocks him out, then he gets the win.
Yeah,
that doesn't really seem fair to me.
It is silly, yeah.
Because I mean, if someone has like like say, we were having a boxing match, and you just have a more tolerant skull, and I punch you 20 times, but you punch me once, and that knocks me out. I don't know. I still feel like I should deserve the win.
That happens.
You've done.
Yeah, I know.
You've had one punch, and I've been knocked out. I don't think that's more impressive than the skill of having the number of hits that I've given you.
No, I agree with you. I think definitely if Rocky, obviously it definitely stands to reason, if Rocky didn't beat the bell, so to speak, or sorry, beat Creed up after getting both of them knocked down, I think Creed would have definitely won that fight for sure. But yeah, I do feel a bit sorry for Creed in that sense. Like, I thought he performed better from the scenes at the film show. I thought he performed better than he did in the first fight.
Yeah, I mean, they announce every time who won the round, and I'm pretty sure 13 out of 15 do go to Creed.
Yeah, and
something
like that. Yeah.
I mean, like, boxing is a point-based system. Like, how can a knockout, so overwhelmingly overshadow, every punch that Creed threw and every round he won? I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah,
and I was surprised that Creed never questioned it.
Yeah, I know, dude. I know. That being said, buddy, I don't have any more points in the film, I'm afraid. Do you have anything on your end?
No, me neither. This sort of follows the standard procedure of, you have the longer film that, establishes the world. A lot of your points go into that. I think we find that
Yeah,
out with like Planet of the Apes.
sure.
And
Oh
then,
yeah,
the,
yeah,
the
big time.
subsequent films are a lot shorter. They have a lot less in them because there's nothing to establish. It's just continuing to grow the world. So I think, especially with Rocky 3, I have almost nothing to say. But with this film, just to quickly summarize, I think, every criticism I had, they've fixed. I for one, I think the best part about this film is it actually got me to like Rocky.
Mm.
There's a bit of sameness in the film. Obviously, it's the same people fighting at the end, and a lot of the preparation for the fight itself is the same.
Mm.
But I didn't have any disdain for that. I watched these back to back, which I think is probably the most ideal method of watching them. Sort of in the manner that we did with Back to the Future. I think
Yeah.
because it's picking up right where the last one left off. I think that's the right way to watch them. So I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, buddy. I everything you said there, I agree with pretty much. I think our criticisms for the first film were mostly addressed here. I think the final boxing fight's even better than the first one. Although the stakes probably aren't as high in this one. I thought it improved generally. So I'd probably give it a 9. Yeah, I had a great time with Rocky 2. One film I really had a great time with was Rocky 3, which is, spoiler alert, my favorite film of the 3 so far, and my favorite of the franchise obviously so far. I
Oh
loved it.
wow!
Yeah, big fan of this one.
So I
Are you
was
not?
taking a moment. I thought I was going to sneeze. No apologies.
You're okay.
Yes, no, I did really enjoy this film. But my immediate, I would say one of the first things that happens in the film is that Paulie, in his drunken state, vandalizes a Rocky video game, and I hate the guy.
I
Like,
really
just
don't like
disown
Polly
him.
at all. I
He
really don't
treats
like
his
him.
sister like shit. He doesn't understand the value of friendship. He thinks that friends owe like the well, he doesn't. He clearly doesn't think he owes Rocky anything because he
Yeah,
set him
fair
up with
enough.
his
Yeah.
sister. And I'm like, well, you didn't respect your sister either. You just thought that she was a loser because she doesn't have a boyfriend. So that's why you set her up with Rocky. You're a piece of shit. He doesn't owe you anything. Disown him.
Yeah, like do movie fans or the Rocky fans, like, do they like Polly? Because I really don't like him.
I think he is an inconsequential character. I've never heard anyone mention him. I mean, I've pretty much just heard people mention Creed, Clubber Lang, Ivan Drago, Rocky, Adrian. I think those are pretty much the five staple
Hmm.
characters of the franchise. So I'd never heard of Paulie before. I would imagine everybody hates him, but I think you're meant to. I think he's
Yeah.
meant to be like a lovable scamp, but he's just a piece of shit. Bin him
Yeah, I'd
off.
agree. I'd agree. Yeah, for sure. Like one character I actually do quite like in this film is Mr. T, who plays Clubber Lang. And like I don't like the character, but I think the performance is quite good. And he has the strangest haircut I've ever seen in my life. But I love it. I love it. It's
Yeah,
so
I just thinking
1980s.
about it. Are his mutton chops T-shaped? Like, is that what they're meant to
I
be?
think so. And then I think he's got a mohawk as well, but I'm not sure. But he's got like a shaved head here, and then like mutton chops, and then a mohawk. I think something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it
It's
is very
something.
distinct. So I
It
mean,
is.
clearly he knew at the time you needed to be distinguishable. So at least he's a visual standout. But I thought acting wise, he was sort of a poor replacement for Apollo Creed as the nemesis character.
Hmm,
I
that's
think
fair.
Carl Weathers in the previous two films just really set the bar high with sort of this rival that you could at least respect, because I
Yeah.
think that is normally the case with boxing matches. I think you sort of create this beef, this rivalry, but really behind closed doors you do respect each other, and I think that was really present in the Creed and Rocky fights, where they would shake hands beforehand, which is obviously a procedure, but I feel like they did mean it as a sign of respect. And
Yeah.
then they finished with sort of a positive exchange of words.
Hmm.
And we never see that here, and there doesn't seem to be any respect. And I think that's definitely going to be the case for Rocky 4 with Ivan Drago. But I don't know. I just didn't like
That's fair enough, buddy.
the
For
the
sure. Like,
performance.
yeah, no, I get that. Like, one thing I like about the Clubber Lang character is like, I think this movie was before like Mike Tyson's time, but it's clear like Clubber Lang sort of, it reminds me a little bit of like Mike Tyson as well. And I think like I think the fact one thing I really respect about the film is that I do think the Rocky character needed to lose the fight against Clubber Lang. So I do. I think I was entitled to the character, and we can sort of see like Clubber Lang all sort of becomes like a bit of a jackass version of what Rocky was like, even more of a jackass, shall I say, than what Rocky was like in the first film. You know, he's a really hungry for the sport, like he wants that that championship. But Rocky, just like sort of Mickey was saying, one thing I'll agree with Mickey on, like Rocky was a bit complacent. But you know, I think this film, there's a lot of good things in there, and I think having Apollo become a friend of Rocky's and train him is genius. I think that's amazing. I love that so much.
Yeah, and you know where I said last film, you know, Rocky 2 made me like Rocky. This film made me like Apollo Creed.
For sure.
And you know, I'm really excited to see, you know, the new Creed films with Michael B. Jordan. You know, I'm really interested to see sort of that legacy continued.
For sure, mate.
There's probably the funniest sequence of the film is where Rocky's getting the shit kicked out of him by Hulk Hogan, who's playing a character called Thunder Lips, which is just fantastic.
That's great. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But I really don't understand how you could orchestrate a fight between a boxer and a wrestler. Because then, like, which rules are they supposed to follow? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Clearly none. Because I mean, Thunderlips just assaults 40 people.
Yeah, and then like Thunderlips sort of plays it off as like, yeah, it's just a character I'm playing. I'm not actually like this, but like, there's clearly times like he's just assaulting these people. Like this is
yeah. I mean, they just get like a cute pick afterwards, and I'm like, why is no one like dropped into the ground with a taser? Like, you know, like he should be in prison.
Yeah, he should be locked up. Thunderlips. Like Hulk Hogan is one of those celebrities. I was like I'm not a Hulk Hogan fan whatsoever.
No.
I really don't like Hulk Hogan. But anyway, like he's yeah, that I forgot about that whole scene, to be honest with you. I think that is one scene. It was like, this does not need to be in the film whatsoever.
No, but
like, we're running low on action.
I thought that the fight
was quite funny.
But I thought the fight between them is probably the best choreographed one in the entire franchise.
Yeah, it is. Yes, probably is.
But Matthew, do you know that there's an upcoming Hulk Hogan biopic with Chris Hemsworth as the star?
Really? No way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he can get the like 290-pound physique though, or so, like
Hulk Hogan was like what, like 6'7"? He was big.
Yeah, like they say that he comes in at nearly 7 feet tall. So I don't know if they can really capture that.
Mm-hmm. Hulk Hogan was a bit before our time. Like, were you ever into wrestling as a kid or not really?
Oh no, not whatsoever. No, I know nothing about wrestling. Nothing about boxing. You know, this sort of world is completely foreign to me. You know, I'm just not a sports person whatsoever. Yeah. You know, I like watching people. I like watching sports films, but you know, really, I usually know nothing about the rules of the sports or the history of the sports. You know, that this was very different to anything I've ever watched, really.
Yeah.
But
no, wrestling was
I would say, you know,
the thing for me either. Like, I wasn't, because a lot of people are like growing up probably did like WWE and stuff like that, but no, like I never really heard of The Rock until he did films. I didn't know he was a wrestler until afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, the only ones I'm familiar with are the ones who've turned to sort of more media stuff. And you know, the only sort of experience I have with anything related to the WWE is the film Fighting with My Family, which is about do you know Paige, the female wrestler?
I've heard about that film.
Yeah, it's really great, you know. But that's the only window I've had to sort of the history of the WWE. But you know, I would say aside from making me like Apollo Creed, the second best thing about this film is that they shook up the structure, and you know, it wasn't just another. You know, I would say there was a bit of safety in the second film where it sort of used a lot of the structure of the first film, you know, to ensure its success. But with this film, they tried something really different. And you know, they had a fight early door. Well, they had multiple fights early doors, and one where Rocky lost, and you know, where that was integral to his journey in the film, which was completely different to how the first and the second film go. So you know, he had something like, once again, you know, as I said, in the second film, he didn't really have anything to prove because he did so well in the first fight with Creed.
Yeah.
You know, but he had something to prove in the first film. He had something to prove here, and you know, even if he had lost the fight with Clubber Lang, it would have shown that he was hungry again. And I feel like him losing to Clubber Lang, I don't know. Do you think that would have been a good decision of the film if he had lost? You know, I think it would have proven that, you know, all he needed to prove to himself is that he still loves the sport. You know, I don't think he needed to prove that he could beat Clubber Lang, just that he was hungry. You know, but I wouldn't have liked to see Clubber Lang again and have him be still that sort of
Yeah,
self-involved
I
dickhead.
know
And
what you
he's
mean.
like,
Yeah, I
he's like,
know.
oh, I'm still the best.
Yeah.
Even if he had lost at the end of this film, I would have needed to see him get beaten by someone in the
I
future.
would have I would have quite liked if maybe halfway through like if in the first Clubber Lang fight, Rocky gets seriously injured and then Apollo Creed has to take the fight and then Apollo Creed beats him. I would have quite liked to see that. But like I think the way the film handled it was actually quite good, to be fair. I suppose like yeah, I suppose that having Apollo Creed in this film, nonetheless, as a trainer is great, and it has one of my most favorite scenes. Unintentionally funny, probably. I don't know if it's unintentionally funny, but like the hug on the beach where it's like slow motion. They're like really
Yeah,
tight
no,
tops are just like yay! It's great.
yeah,
It's
and
so
then it's
funny.
like zooming in on their thigh muscles. Like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's an interesting directorial choice
It,
from
it
Stallone.
was, yeah, and one I don't know. This definitely wasn't intentionally funny, but like Mickey dies via like
I knew that was coming up. I
a
knew you
little
were going to be
shove
like,
from Clubber
I,
Lang.
I knew you were going to say that
Oh,
you find that hilarious. Yeah,
it's
Clubber,
funny.
like there are no consequences to Clubber Lang,
Murderer.
manslaughtering Mickey.
Yeah. Mickey's just like, I love
Yeah,
you,
I mean,
kids, and then just dies. Yeah.
you would think there would be, maybe cause to have the results of the fight thrown out if your trainers hadn't had a heart attack 30 seconds
Yeah.
before the fight begins.
Yeah.
Maybe your mind's on different things. I feel like that was a
Yeah.
bit questionable. And
Oh,
I,
brilliant.
I would say, once again, much doesn't happen. Not much happens in this film. And I think, that this film's only an hour and a half long, and the fight starts like the final fight starts an hour into the film.
Mm.
It's a really quick turnaround, plot wise.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you, like, I would have thought that at 191 pounds, like I looked up, like boxing weight classes,
Yeah.
and at 191 pounds, like he would absolutely not qualify for the heavyweight
Yeah,
title,
I think he's
surely.
like cruiserweight or something. Like 191 pounds is really
Yeah,
I think that's cruiserweight. I don't think that's heavyweight. Yeah, you're right. It's funny you should
yeah.
say
I
that
was like,
because
surely he doesn't qualify.
he's really like is it just me or is he like he's unusually ripped in this film? Like like in the first two films he's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like bulky, muscular, but here like he's jacked. And like the film,
yeah. He
I think
he didn't
Stallone.
have a six pack in either of the first two
Yeah.
movies, but here he is shredded.
Yeah, and Stallone, like you can 100% know, like in the script, he's just written like, make sure the commentators point out how ripped I am, because there's two moments of the commentators go, "Look at Rocky, he's so chiseled now." Like out of nowhere, I was like, "Brilliant,
Yeah,
brilliant." But yeah, like
yeah.
100,
I
I
mean,
think, yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
you sort of mentioned like Stallone's physique there. You mentioned it, a few. I think you mentioned it in the second film. And do you know much about like his training
I
method?
didn't. No, go for it, man.
Well, he has sort of recently commented that he sort of doesn't have much respect for the Marvel actors who sort of like bulk up with steroids, because he said oh, like back in my day we had to do it all for real. And he said that he got ripped by eating like burnt toast and drinking coffee, and then that apparently he would just like train aggressively and just
Mhm.
eat burnt toast. But I mean that just sounds disastrous.
Yeah, it does. Like it's definitely far removed from like the Arnold Schwarzenegger like raw egg approach. But no, that's funny Stallone should say that, because like I was on his Wikipedia the other day, and like it said like in like 2017 or something he was arrested for having like steroids on him in Australia or something. So like I find that quite weird, because like he's still like in a great shape now, I'd imagine. And like for Rocky Balboa, like from what I've seen of that film, like I think he's like in his 50s when that was shot, or sorry, when that was filmed, and like he looks amazing. So but yeah, like he burnt toast and coffee. That's if that's a way to get a six pack, mate, we better change our ways. You know what I mean?
But I mean, you would have thought, like, they say pretty much if you want abs, don't eat carbs, and you
Yeah,
would have thought
yeah.
eating
So
burnt toast
toast.
would be
Yeah,
counterproductive.
literally.
But do you agree that this film would have been a massively satisfying conclusion to the series? Because I think that Rocky in this
Without
film
doubt.
has proven that he earned the title, and the beef from the first film with Apollo Creed has been ended. And I think the franchise succeeded in getting me to like all the protagonists. I
I'd
think
agree
that
with
it
you.
ended
Yeah,
here.
for
Rocky's
sure.
happy and he's earned his title. I
Oh,
think it
for
would have been the
sure.
perfect ending.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I'd agree with you, Callum, for sure, dude. And like, it's weird because to people I speak about or have heard reviews about from Rocky Four, apparently like that is like to a lot of people that's the definitive Rocky story. Like that's the definitive Rocky film for a lot of people. So apparently that yeah, that film did really well. And obviously, like I know what happens in it and stuff, but like it's
I do as well,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, I know, and like it's apparently it's very good, so I'm looking forward to watching it as well. But yeah, I think this would have been a really good conclusion because, like you said, the beef squashed. Rocky's got the heavyweight champion title back, and Clubber Lang's defeated. So I think everything's wrapped up quite nicely. But
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose it did very well at the box office. So there was, yeah, kind of had to do a fourth one. But any more remarks from you, mate, on this one?
No, there's nothing else for me. What about you?
No, nothing for me, buddy. What would you give this one out of 10 then to conclude today's episode?
Well, I think talking it through, it actually does shine a little bit more than I thought. You know, it's a nice short runtime. You know, I think it's very well paced. I think because of its unintentional or maybe intentional funniness with the training scene, that might be my favorite.
Yeah,
Just because I think it's funny and it's sweet to see Apollo Creed and you know Rocky become friends. And I think that like I don't care if I like Rocky. I don't care if I like some certain characters, but I really wanted to like Apollo Creed, and this film succeeded in getting me to do that.
yeah,
So I really respect it for that. Clubber Lang, I don't think he's the best nemesis. I think Apollo Creed was a much better sort of you know
agreed. Yeah,
boxing sport rival. You know from the first two films. But, you know I think Clubber Lang had his place in this film because Apollo Creed needed to be a friend, and that felt a lot more gratifying to see them as friends. So I think I actually like this film. I think it's my favorite of the three as well. I'm
yeah.
going to give it a
Oh,
9.
awesome, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, because like one thing you mentioned that I actually haven't considered, like there seems to be some sort of like a hidden sort of beef between Apollo Creed and Clubber Lang as well. Is it like there's a lot of instances where like they shove each other and stuff, and there's a lot of words being said. So that's interesting you mentioned that. But for me, mate, I love this film so much. Out of the three films so far, it's my favorite. I think the Clubber Lang definitely has his place, like you said, and he's definitely, I would say, the most physically intimidating of the villains so far. Maybe Ivan Drago. Well, Ivan Drago definitely probably eclipses that. But anyway, I'd probably give this film a 10. I love it. I think it's the equivocal Rocky film for me. I love it so much. But yeah, that was it. That was a good episode, I suppose. Shall we get into a bit of future episode chat? Yeah.
Well, if we want to just talk about you know sort of our excitement for watching the future Rocky
Yeah.
films, you know
Yeah.
the next few ones,
Yeah. It's a good place
I
to
would
start.
say you know there's only been a couple of scenarios where we've sort of started a franchise and had to do multiple parts. You know there was Planet of the Apes, there was Star Wars, you know Terminator, and I would say this is one of the few instances where I'm actually like really excited to continue watching it.
I agreed. I
You know
agreed. Yeah,
I
for
sort of
sure.
like you know if I had had enough time I would have you know watched 4, 5, and 6. Like I would have been happy to do that if I'd had enough time.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Agreed, mate.
because they're fantastic. You
Yeah.
know, the first film's a bit questionable in certain areas, but you know, I have to respect you know what it did for the genre and what you know the world it established. So you know, I'm really excited to get to finish them.
For sure, man. And like, it'd be quite rare these days. Like, if let's say we get to a stage where we reviewed 4, 5, and 6 next week, and we think, and we look back in these three films as well, we think there's not really a stinker in here. It's definitely stands to reason that like the Rocky franchise is definitely up there with like some of the best films we've reviewed from a franchise perspective. Like, obviously, not every film is perfect. Like we've discussed, like they all have their flaws, but there's not really a stinker so far, and hopefully, there's not going to be a stinker in just in general. Like and the Creed films are another ones that like are amazing, so amazingly reviewed. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching them. Like you said, they have a great episodic feel to them, like Back to the Future, where I could just watch them all day. To be honest with you, so
Mhm.
yeah, I love, and they're also like they're not excessively long either, like hour and a half some of them, and like you just blitz that out, and it's good. Yeah, I'm a big fan, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you want to talk future episodes, the next I think we're going to be continuing our Disney episodes,
yeah, yeah.
and once again, I still can't remember what the 4 films that we're doing for the next episode are. There's Brother
Brother
Bear.
Bear is one of
I
them.
remember.
Uh,
Uh, I
you know
Meet
what?
the Robinsons.
I'll get
No,
my phone out.
that's not next week.
I'll
Yeah,
get my phone up.
get
Brother
your phone
Bear
out.
is
Sure.
good. Brother, have you seen it? Have you seen Brother Bear?
I have not. I'm unfortunately aware of sort of the pivotal moment in the film.
Mm,
You know, sort of the character defining moment
yeah,
for the main character. Unfortunately, I am aware of that. You know, because it's meant to be a surprise. But you know, I'm really excited to watch it still, and I didn't know until recently that it's Joaquin Phoenix, isn't it?
Is it? I didn't know Wacky Faces in Brother Bear. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I think he plays the main character that is turned into a bear.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I'll have a wee look at that. So, okay. So, where did we get up to last week? Last week, we must have got up
We
to
watched,
Emperor's New Groove.
yeah, which was number 40 of 58.
So, we've got 41, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. 42, Lilo and
Yes,
Stitch. Now, that's a good shout. Lilo and Stitch is a good one. Treasure Planet, haven't seen that one. And then Brother Bear
but
is
it
the
stars
last one.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so we
Yes,
know it's
yeah,
probably going
oh,
to be
that's
good.
brilliant. Who's in Atlantis now? Let's see that one. Um, Joss Whedon starred in that one, and Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future stars in this
Joss
one.
Whedon starred in it.
Sorry, no, he produced the story, so that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Imagine he started. That'll be weird. But yeah, that's gonna be a good episode, and then of course probably the podcast after that will probably be Rocky Films Part 2. We'll be doing 4 or 5, and then Rocky Balboa. So
Yeah, and I think pretty much we're going to stuff as many episodes into this year as we can get. You know,
yeah,
we're averaging about one every 5 days or so.
yeah,
You know, so we're hoping to get, you know, as many out before Christmas, and then around Christmas time we're doing a classics episode. If you want to, if I mean, no one will be here at this point. But, you know, if you want to
we
hear
hope
any
so.
specifics, uh, you know, and by classic Christmas films, do we mean like well renowned, or do we mean like old?
Up to
Because
you.
I
Up to
definitely want to
you.
cover "It's a Wonderful Life."
Yeah,
Uh,
Miracle on
I
24th
think
Street
maybe this year classic is in old, and then
next
next year
next
maybe
year.
good ones. The year after that, bad ones.
Yeah, that's a
You
good
know,
shout. That's a good shout. Like, it's weird because I think this year's been we've put out a lot of podcasts this year, and like we haven't we're gonna put out a few more, like you said, before the end of the year, and hopefully fingers crossed, depending on government guidelines, Callum and I might be filming our first in person video / podcast / mini review / whatever. Uh,
since February,
yeah, yeah, for
I think.
sure. And hopefully we'll be getting around to that soon because it's been a while. I think the last in person, I don't think we've ever recorded an in person podcast before. It's always been over Zoom, hasn't it? So first time's the charm for that one, I suppose.
Do you mean well? I mean, we obviously
On video,
recorded ones before.
yeah, but like video
Oh,
wise,
you
I don't
mean?
think, yeah,
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. I
yeah,
get you now.
yeah. But no, sorry, I worded that weirdly. But yeah, I think the last time we did just audio where it was just me and you was probably like Sonic the Hedgehog or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That was a
I
while
think
ago.
so.
That was a while ago. But anyway, yes. Thanks so much today, Callum. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks for introducing me to 3 more movies. Thanks to everyone who has listened to this. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment. You guys know the drill. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day and take care. Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.